Everybody, welcome back to Northernlion Plays the Binding of Isaac AFTERBIRTH Plus. This is it's a momentous occasion. This would be win 4-0, the Elias Pettersson victory. Let's see if we can make it happen. Z8EJKDJP. It's the first. This is the first video of the week. That's how I choose to think about how my week is structured. Sunday morning. Isn't that a Maroon 5 song? I dare not... Look, I'm not the biggest fan of Maroon 5 as artists. Which probably goes without saying. You know, most of my musical tastes don't really run through the same line as Maroon 5. However, what I will say... Adam Levine, very, very distinctive voice, very good singer in my opinion. Not, you know, I'm one of those... snobs, I guess, who was like the quality of someone singing is like the 35th most important thing to me when I think about, you know, what I want in a musician or a band. But I will admit the man's got a fantastic voice. But anyway, Sunday morning, play some Isaac, get some wins. Let's do it. Just evaluating the run. I really like having a judgment card early. We may not use it until the second floor, because if it's whether it's a regular judgment or a demon judgment, we would actually rather use it on the second floor. We don't want to use it on the first floor because if it's a regular judgment, it would cost us money that might cost us a chance at the arcade. If it's a demon judgment, we would rather get it on the next floor, because if we get an arcade, we could double dip. You know what? We will take this, obviously. It's a little tight. We don't have to go to the curse room. We don't have to. But I think I'm gonna. We should be okay. Like, the rest of our stats are pretty much all within the bounds of normalcy. I would say that, you know, rate of fire and damage are actually a little... Oh, that's so good. A little closer to the great side than to the bad side. Okay, so should we have gone this far? All I'm gonna say is that there's no way for us to know yet. Getting this much money is definitely... we got a big decision here. Because it's worth spending a key to go to the shop, in my opinion. But then on the shop, is there anything we like? In the Xenia on a shop? I don't think there is. I think we'll be leaving and trying to maximize our value on the next floor. Let me hydrate a little here. It is Sunday, as mentioned. Didn't really get up to too much this weekend, which is becoming like a pretty common refrain, especially as we get further and further along in the pregnancy. Like as of yesterday, Kate is 36 weeks pregnant, which the astute amongst you will start doing the numbers and be like, that's 9 months. But you know, here's something you may not know. Or you may, for that matter, but if you're not versed in the matters of pregnancy, pregnancy is only colloquially 9 months. The actual, you know, estimated labor is usually at 40 weeks. Just, you know, it's not really 10 months, because months are not 4 weeks long. They're like four weeks and change, but 40 weeks is considered the kind of the standard gestation period. If I'm going to phrase it in the most scientific and antiseptic and, you know, gross way possible. The average gestation period for a human female having birth for the first time. Yeah, so we're like, I mean, we're well within the past month in all likelihood. Or in all guarantee, I suppose. And, you know, starts to get to the point you can't really do much. I mean, I can still do stuff, but I'm not going to be like, hey, honey, you know, I'm going out. So instead, we just had a nice low-key day inside. No bombs, huh? Watch the new Charlie Kaufman film on Netflix. I'm thinking of ending things. I told my wife, I was like, hey, I think this is it's like a horror movie about like a kind of a metaphysical weirdness and creepy family sort of thing. Maybe it might be a little bit like Get Out. Spoilers. Is not at all like Get Out. I really like Charlie Kaufman. If you're not familiar with Charlie Kaufman, He's originally got very noteworthy as a screenwriter. Dude, I do love that. I do love it, but we can't really make it happen right now. He wrote Being John Malkovich, I think was probably the first big one. And then Adaptation, one of my favorite movies ever. Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep, Chris Cooper. Nicolas Cage plays twin brothers. This is before the Cage, before things got a little suspect surrounding Nicolas Cage, right? This is still like, you know, in the he's one of the best actors in the world sort of camp. Now, keep in mind, I still think Nicolas Cage is one of the best actors in the world. We're just going to hold off on that for just a second. But there was definitely a period where it was like, he's amazing, and then like, ooh, what happened? And then now we're kind of in that like meme but also success level for him right now, right? Anyway, he also perhaps most famously wrote the original screenplay for Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Then that was kind of like a launch pad for him to direct his own stuff. Most famously, probably 2008 or 2009's Schenectady, New York, with Philip Seymour Hoffman. And also Anomalisa, which came out maybe 3 years ago. It was like a stop-motion movie. All of his movies are essentially, and this is not meant as an insult, because I'm actually a big fan, but a lot of his movies are about kind of like, you know, middle-aged men with dad bods, pining with maybe some sort of like unrequited love for women with dyed hair who wear oversized sweaters. And that's like a needless sort of reduction, I would say, of the work, because I think that you know, it's more advanced than that, but there's definitely some like recurring themes, let's put it that way. But yeah, I mean, I love Adaptation. Eternal Sunshine also, historically, I've said is like my favorite movie of all time. Saw it at a very formative period in my life, for sure. And still have not gotten over the Academy not at least giving it a nomination for Best Picture in 2004 or 2003. I mean, come on, what are you doing there? Anyway, what you've rambled. Okay, that's true. Here's what I'll say about Charlie Kaufman, okay? I love his work as a screenwriter. Don't be mad, okay? Hold on. We gotta pop this down. We could have put this in a different situation. I think the most important thing is to, I don't know, maybe buying the gift was better. But I thought to maybe get a reroll on this item room, which also allows us to get multiple rerolls if we wanted, because we had extra money on top of that. But Mom's Wig is pretty good. I like Charlie Kaufman as a screenwriter a lot. I think he's a fantastic screenwriter. When he becomes a director, when he gets full control over the way that a film goes, it gets way, way, way too art housey for me. If you're into it, I'm rooting for you, like not even facetiously. Sorry, this is a big moment. Okay, maybe you'll give me a bomb instead then. I was hoping to be able to purchase a bomb. Just getting HP from that is pretty good, I'll admit, but I think we're out of here now, unfortunately. And people sometimes that, like, I gotta acknowledge, like, I've followed the development of Schenectady, New York for, like, you know, 4 years or whatever. It's a long time to be making a film. But post Eternal Sunshine, I was like, I gotta see what this dude gets up to next. Well, he's gonna make a movie that he wrote himself that's considered like one of the most ambitious scripts of all time. And studios are actually giving him a little bit of funding because he's got such a good track record after Eternal Sunshine. How could it go wrong? And then I watched it and I was like, I feel like for the purposes of broad appeal to a general audience, the man needs somebody who's like, Charlie, but what's happening? Can you explain to the... Can you explain to the audience what's happening? Like, the whole movie... This is very true for I'm Thinking of Ending Things as well. The whole movie is literally... Like, I don't mean it in a boring way. I don't mean, like, nothing happens. Because things are happening. But nothing that happens is what's happening, if that makes sense. The entire movie is a metaphor, or, you know... And this is not spoilers. It's not really that kind of movie, but... You know, nothing. You'll find out very quickly in the film that nothing is as it seems. But you know, because nothing is as it seems, you're like, I don't know where we are. You know, it's one of those movies where I had to watch an explain the movie video essay afterwards. And when I watched the video essay, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I couldn't help but shake the feeling, or like I couldn't shake the feeling, I should say, that, you know, instead of watching the movie, I would have been better off just watching the explain and then being like, oh, that seems good, instead of spending 2.5 hours on it myself. And the thing, like, it's one of those movies, you know, I have a pretty high tolerance for art house stuff relative to general audiences. Over the years, as people, you know, more, and this is not like looking down my nose, as more general audiences on Netflix discover that movie and try to watch it, you're gonna see a lot of angry tweets and a lot of angry Facebook posts. Tried to make it through this movie, has the guy who played Todd in Breaking Bad in it, so I thought it would be cool. You know, I like that guy. And then what's happening? Would I recommend it? Here's what I would say. I would recommend it if you like Schenectady, New York. If you thought that that movie was not very good, or alternatively, wait, because this is the boat that I'm in. I'm sure it's good. Is it entertaining? Not really. I left the theater, my little indie theater in the town where I went to university, which is also the town where I grew up, to be fair. And I was like, man, just kind of was like bored and rolling my eyes. However, I know for a lot of people it's one of their favorite movies they've ever seen in their entire lives. If you like that, you should definitely watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things. It's a movie for you. But I was annoyed. Also, this is not the movie's fault, but much of it is shot extremely darkly, like that one episode of Season 8 of Game of Thrones. And we watched it in like the middle of the day, and even with like the curtains drawn, could barely see what was happening on screen for part of it. But that's not the movie's fault. Charlie, that one's not your fault, okay? Get me out of here. So that was, you know, that was like that. I bought some groceries. That's pretty much it, honestly. It didn't really get up to all that much. Actually, I mean, do you want some really boring stuff? I changed the air filters inside of, like, our, I don't even know what you call it, like, inside of our HVAC system. It's crazy. Like, if you have, I don't know how houses work, okay? So let me be honest. I just don't know how they work. When I was a kid, I saw a house was just kind of like a box that you lived in. Now that, you know, we're homeowners, you realize there's a lot of, like, moving parts involved in this stuff, right? So we have, like, some kind of HVAC system in our house that exchanges air with the outside. So, you know, stale air, I don't want to call it used or whatever, but you know what I mean. Stale air gets pushed out, and then fresh air from the outside gets brought in. But of course, you know, because there's, like, a vacuum that sucks the air inside, occasionally you'll suck in like little bugs and a lot of dust and, you know, debris and stuff like that, particulate. If you got one of these in your place, wash or change the filter often. And I'm not trying to, you know, give you more stuff to do. I know everybody's busy. But, like, I opened it up and I was like, oh, that's weird. I've never seen, like, usually filters are kind of like dark. This one is like almost completely white. And then I started, like, vacuuming the filter, and I was like, oh, it actually is black. It's just, there's so much, like, debris from the outside. It's one of those things where it's like, you know, when you were a kid, you'd go to, like, well, I don't say like school, you'd go to actual school, and they'd show you, like, hey, this is what a smoker's lungs look like after 20 years. That's what my filter looked like. I was like, man, that stuff could have been inside of my body. And then it got me thinking, I was like, man, the human body is incredible. Because, you know, people have been living without these filters forever. So a lot of that stuff is ending up, you know, inside of your body. I mean, not as much as you might expect, because my nose is smaller than the, you know, exhaust port and the intake. I hope, at least, but, I guess we could have re-rolled that, but... Ooh, it's not so bad. But yeah, it was like, and then, I don't know if it's psychological, but I feel like I'm breathing easier today. I might sound a little hoarse, but honestly, I mean, there's two reasons for that. One of them is that it's still pretty early in the morning. Here's where I'm at in my life now, and I've talked about sleeping a lot. I am now at the point where if I ever deviate and wake up early from my current, arising time, that now becomes my new wake up time, maybe for the rest of my life. It wasn't always like this. There were... Hold on. What? There were periods of my life... I would not recommend what I did here. That was not a good pair throw. There were periods of my life where, in school, for example, you wake up at 6:45 a.m., Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, you wake up at like 11. That is no longer the world that I live in. That world is a shadow and a vestige of a time long gone. Now, I used to get up at 9. Well, we can even move the story back a little further. And I've told this one before, but, I used to get up probably around like 10:30 even, which is still hilariously, by many YouTuber standards, kind of on the early side. But that's because we live a semi-charmed kind of life, baby. I don't really want to play the blood bank. I think we'll just get out of here. And then, I remember it was like Thanksgiving 2018 or 2017. I think it was 2018. Now I will go play the blood bank. We went to our in-laws' place for Thanksgiving. And it was like I'm thinking of ending things where the lady is like, I really need to go. We need to get out of here because it's a 3-hour drive to get home. We didn't leave till like 11. So we didn't get home until like 2, and I remember feeling like the most intense sort of tiredness I've ever felt in my entire life. Not on a medical level. I wasn't like, oh, I don't understand why this is happening. I was like, I get it, I'm tired. Also, I drove 6 hours, And then the next day, instead of waking up at 10:30, I woke up at like 9. And that's just been the time that I've woken up pretty much every day since. Except, last week, I had to wake up a little earlier, so I got up at 8. Again, not complaining. I know, I understand what you're gonna say. I know you're gonna be like, I wake up at 5. Okay, you win. Is that what you want to hear? Congrats. You're not getting enough. Whatever you're waking up at 5 for, you should be trying to get the attention from them, not from me, If you're waking up at 5 to work a job so you could, support your family. Your family, I'm not saying, you should do it so they say thanks to you. It's kind of a weird energy. But, like, why try to get that from a YouTuber, Try to be like, hey, honey, I understand you had a hard day, but I woke up at 5 a.m. today to knock out the mortgage payment. Don't take it up with me is all I'm trying to say. But anyway, I'm not in control of that aspect of your life, or really any aspect of your life, to be honest. And that's the way I like it, and I'll never get bored. But, yeah, on Thursday, I woke up at 8, and then now that's just when I wake up. So I have to be very careful. I have to be very careful now, because, apparently, when I wake up late, which almost never happens now, it doesn't work both ways. But when I wake up early, that becomes the new time that I will wake up for perhaps the rest of my life. So you ever wonder, my parents are, they're very young. They're only in like their mid-50s. But, yeah, we'll take it. I mean, we might as well clear out a path to the shop as well, even though we don't have much money. But they wake up at like, maybe 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. Coming from me, even now, that seems not possible. Wait, maybe this is greed. That would be good. That's, like, ridiculous. And you'd think, like... I mean, my dad woke up at, like, maybe 5:30 or 6 Monday through Friday, and thus also Saturday and Sunday. Like, the entire time that I lived at home as a kid, for sure. But, you would think, like, as they got older and their responsibilities waned a little bit, they might, start to sleep in a little bit, but it's very much the opposite. And I think that's bookworm, so I will take. We're doing the little things right here. It's just a long run with, like, pretty low prospects for damage right now, but we're getting there. But I think it's just, you know, that they're a cautionary tale, and the cautionary tale is very simple. You can't move backwards. You can't move more towards sleeping in, I don't know. Maybe not. And then the other reason for my relative hoarseness is because, you know, yesterday was my day off, but, like, last week, we were burning the midnight oil. Lots of sponsored stuff, and it was really fun, you know? Twitch Chat's Choice Awards, talked about it a little bit, but then on Friday, had a sponsored stream for Tony Hawk's Pro Skater Remastered, which is really just, like, the dream scenario. I mean, the game is great, and I played, like, a stupid amount of it as a kid, so I know what I'm doing. Not the best Tony Hawk player in the world, but I can hold my own, let's put it that way. Okay, you know what? That's actually a really good get. Let's not worry about it too much. Let's just play you the old-fashioned way. And I gotta say, on top of, like... And again, this is a flex, I apologize. But on top of, you know, getting paid to play a game that I like and, you know, possibly would have played anyway. Although I will say, not, like, necessarily right at launch and also constantly promoting, you know, the platforms it's available on. The Activision got front page promotion for it for 2 hours, which actually made it, like, the most high viewer count stream I've ever had. And my history of highest view count streams on Twitch is actually hilarious. Allow me. Number 1 is now Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, due to front page promotion. Number 2 is the release of, I can't remember because there's been so many, but is either Afterbirth or Afterbirth Plus. It's probably Afterbirth I did a stream for. Apparently we had around, like, 18,000 viewers. And then, number 3 is Team Unity Episode 1 of Terraria, which was also, I mean, these 3, actually, no, this one had front page promotion as well. The Afterbirth one didn't, but I was wearing an onion on my belt, which was the style at the time. We haven't been to our item room yet, so I think it's justifiable. And then try again here. It'll probably pay for itself. It'll probably pay for itself. We could get a hive mind for cool spiders, but yikes. I would say let's try to get blue candle actually for a little bit of extra damage. Okay, so sorry, I keep losing my train of thought. It is still pretty early here. By my standards. By my bones. Number 1, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Number 2, Afterbirth Plus. Number 3, squad streaming Terraria with Team Unity, which was actually a sponsored stream from Twitch, which got us front page promotion to promote squad streaming, which is something that now we use like every single day. And number 4 is the one that always throws people for a loop. When Titanfall 1 had an open beta in 2013, we streamed it on the NLSS and got like 12,000 viewers. There was a lot of hype for Titanfall back in the day for sure. So, and now I suppose, but now it's mostly like, oh, Titanfall. But Titanfall 2, it made me cry when the robot did the dance or whatever. So, you know, a weird history for certain. Indie Pentathlon was pretty good too, for sure. I think we were getting close to 5 figures on that one. Alright, let's see what we got here. I'm not complaining, obviously. Like, it's awesome. We'll take Epiphora. Let's just assume that was our second item so that we feel like we got our money's worth. But for sure... Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no. For sure, it has been... a busy, you know, week and a half, but also, like, you know, a very nice week and a half as well. There's no denying that. a lot of fun projects that it was great to be a part of, and maybe even a couple more coming next week that you'll know about them by now probably, but I can't tell you. Uh-oh. No, we're okay. Chart a course, dude. Incredible performance. That's a dead end. Well, win 40 seems, let's not call it sewn up, but it seems like we're in a real nice spot. And don't forget, this is what Blue Candle is here for. But yeah, this is really like the last kind of push, pun intended, I suppose, before the arrival of the baby. We're definitely at, like, we're on call. Now, instead of, maybe this is the way it should have been the whole time, but when Kate is like, oh, I feel something in my stomach, or like, I feel like a symptom of blah, 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 I'm like, I'm like, are you okay? And more, I'm like, are you getting contractions 5 minutes apart? For 1 minute sustained for at least 1 hour, because that's like the sign that you're going into labor. So we're there for sure. And any given, there's a chance that before this video is published, I mean, technically there's a chance that it could happen before this video is even done recording, but it's pretty low still. But yeah, we're definitely getting into it. It is crazy to think as well. People always like they're surprised when I tell them that my parents are in their mid-50s. Which is fair. I mean, again, it is, and I know you're like mid-50s, you mean like 59, right? I'm like, nah, dude. Not even. I mean, like the mathematical bounds of mid-50s. I mean, because you do the math, you're like, my parents had me. You don't really think about it as a kid. They didn't have me when they were teenagers, but they were like just barely in their 20s, basically. And it's really funny to think about the fact that, like, when, like, now, we did so much prep for the baby. I'm not saying my parents didn't, by the way, but we did so much prep for the baby, and we're, we're old enough that I had to think of my age, at least. I'm 31, I'll be 32, in like 3 months or something like that, 2 months, I guess. It still feels like, I don't feel like I'm not ready. That when I think about the idea that, Kate might go into labor at any given moment, I'm definitely not, like, panicked. I'm not like, oh, we just, just give me one more day of freedom. I'm not, I haven't been like that since the start. And I remember mentioning it in Isaac episodes. I'm not like, oh, I feel like my lifestyle's gonna come crashing down on me. I'm like, things are gonna change, but it's a change for good. Excuse me. Excuse. Thank you. But it's definitely like, I now, the older I get, the more I can put myself in my parents' shoes for sure. And I'm like, man, can you imagine? I mean, many of you are probably not even imagining. You're probably in the boat, but like, having a kid when you're in your early 20s. I mean, times were economically like a little different back then, but, my parents were definitely not like at a point where they were even close to being established in life. So it's not like, it wasn't one of those situations where it was like, yeah, but at age 20, he probably owns 6 houses. If he does, or did, he didn't tell me about it. Or hasn't told me about it. I don't know why I phrased it so strangely, but really makes you think, and, yeah, trying to phrase it in the best way possible is like you have a lot more empathy for it, for sure. Like, I mean, this is a spicy topic, but, I went to a relatively small high school, but there was a, 1 or 2 very noteworthy, like, teen pregnancies that happened at the high school. And, at the time, it's weird. I think, like, when you're in the bubble, you don't really acknowledge the bubble, if that makes sense. Like, as a teenager, you're like, well, more power to her, but also, like, that's gonna be hard for her. You don't acknowledge, like, I don't think you can conceptualize. Now that I'm, you know, like 31 and I'm having a kid myself, I'm like, man, I can't imagine having a kid in like 10th grade. Like that takes a lot of, sure, you know, was it the way that they planned it out probably to begin with? No, I mean, you don't get genius points for being like, you know, that probably wasn't the way they saw it going. But at the same time, that kind of smug sense of like, you know, oh, why didn't you blah blah, it gets replaced, I think, as you get older, or at least it has for me, with a sense of like, man, you know, like I don't feel overwhelmed, I feel like whelmed. It's been preparatory work, but I think we're ready, and definitely had a lot of advantages that like a 10th grade student wouldn't. But I can't even imagine, like in September, you're, you know, just starting sophomore year home economics class, and then like by May you're like, I'm in control of a human life. That's wild, dude. Takes a lot for sure. I have heard that, and this is, again, this is less of a bit like, you know, I can't believe this, and more of a bit like, some of you went to some amazing high schools. I have heard stories of people that went to high schools that actually had daycares built into the school. How big does your school have to be able to support a daycare for the students? I'm just crunching the numbers in my head, and I'm like, our school, and people sometimes don't believe this, but then other people go like, yeah, that's normal. Our school didn't even have a nurse, you know? It had like one guidance counselor. I'm pretty sure that's mandated by law, because I only spoke to him one time, and it was in 12th grade when we were applying for universities. And he's like, so what do you want to do with your life? And you're like, I don't know. Go to school? It's, you know, speak to what you know. Help me. We almost got sucked down to the void there. That would have been pretty bad. I think we can afford this, though it's unlikely to matter too much. But we didn't even have a nurse, you know? What happened if you got sick at school? You know, go home. What happened if you got injured? Go to the freaking hospital. This isn't a... There's no doctors here. There's like, you know, gym teachers. Whenever it takes me out of a movie or a TV show whenever there's like a school nurse. And which doesn't make any sense, because I know that it's like a real thing, but I'm like, your school has a nurse? Like a medical professional who you go there and go like, oh, my tummy hurts. And they're like, here you go. That's crazy to me. That daycare is just so far outside of the bounds of realism for me that I'm like, I can recognize that it exists, but functionally my brain won't actually be believable. Like, it won't consider it believable. Like, to me, that's like the same as like, yeah, I know Captain America picked up Mjolnir, but that's fiction. It's like, I know that there's the concept of daycares inside of schools, but simultaneously, like, you know, well, people will make up anything these days. It's just, it is wild to think. Then again, my high school was essentially a rectangle that was 2 stories tall. We did have an auto shop. And are there still photography classes in high school? Like, is it analog photography? I'm like, what's digital, what's analog? I don't know. Even just saying the phrase digital photography sounds funny. Like, I can't remember the last time I heard someone say the word digital, or the phrase digital camera. If you'll excuse me. Get this out of here. Get these guys crushed. We should be good to go. I will also say, I mean, I'm kind of like, we're low on anecdotes. But I've been using the pregnancy as a great opportunity to eat a lot of delivery and takeout because, you know, cooking's great. Don't get me wrong. I still cook, you know, multiple times per week for sure. Multiple times per day for sure. But sometimes I'll be like, I don't really want to cook. Do you have any cravings? And then Kate's like, I want this. And I'm like, you know my philosophy, you know? I'm just happy to have food in my belly. I've always said, like, you know, at a restaurant, it's not that I've never been like, this food isn't that good, but even, like, bad food at a restaurant, I'm like, it still tickles my lizard brain. I still got, you know, it feels good to be putting something in my mouth and chewing. So anyway. We ordered some Korean food last night. Kate had some jjajangmyeon, which is a noodles in a black bean sauce, and then we had some sweet and sour pork on the side. And then I got like my go-to Korean dish, which is called cheukdabbap. Probably put a little too much sauce on the my accent there. It's like a, you know, it's not the way it's pronounced in Korean, but you know what I mean. It's like a spicy pork and rice stir fry, more or less. And I have to tell you, much in the same way I have a relatively high art house tolerance, but couldn't stand parts of, I'm thinking of ending things. I am not a spice head. I am not a chili fiend, you know? But I can handle spicy food. I typically, and you know, just to continue with the lore, I've ordered less of it as I've gotten a little older, because I've finally succumbed to the gastrointestinal problems that a lot of people start to get as they get older, where I'm like, you know, it doesn't give me heartburn or anything like that, but sometimes 12 to 20 hours later, it's not that pleasant, you know what I mean? So, but this is usually like, we're talking maybe on a normalized spice scale, like a 5 out of 10 spicy. Spicy enough that you're like, that's hot. It might induce some light sweating, but definitely you're not in tears, you're not uncomfortable. You know, there's a certain, like, when you hit a level of spiciness where you just get, like, an intensely, like, bitter flavor, that's where it's too much for me. And this was possibly, and there's been a few, but this is possibly the spiciest dish I've ever consumed in my entire life. I wouldn't necessarily describe it as inedible, but it was, I ate like very, very little of it, and then was just like, I gotta tap out, because I in the very, very little that I ate, I actually drank 3 full glasses of water. And I know water doesn't really dull the pain, milk dulls the pain, or whatever, but I don't want to drink 3 glasses of milk, or even maybe 2 glasses of milk while I'm eating dinner. It's a little much, right? But then, you know, I didn't throw it out because there's so much left, because I couldn't eat that much of it. Kate's like, why? Well, it's not like you're going to eat it later. And I'm like, I'm holding out a hope that, you know, when it's cold, it won't be as spicy. And I know it sounds weird, but I kind of think it's true. Actually, I won't even say kind of. I definitely think it's true. Like, I think physical heat, like thermodynamic heat, and the spice chemical capsaicin, don't they trigger like the same response from your taste buds, or from the cells in your mouth, I suppose, because I don't even think it's taste buds, because your lips will start burning. But I'm like, cold spicy food, don't get me wrong, still spicy, but piping hot spicy food is like, even if the food is at like a temperature that's edible, it feels like it's boiling. It's gonna feel like your mouth is on fire. This gazpacho soup just burned my lips. Anyway, again, if you want to make this, like, it's the same as the wake-up thing. I get everybody's desperate for some kind of way to stand out. If you're like, oh, I bet it's not that spicy, that's fine, you know? I'm telling you it is, but if you, having not consumed it, and probably just hearing about the dish for the first time in your entire life, think you know better than me, then sure, by all means. It's called the Dunning-Kruger phenomenon. Regardless, don't hit me. What I was gonna say is, the other thing that surprised me is not like this is a dish that's out of nowhere. I consume this dish like at least 100 times in Korea, and it's my go-to Korean dish from other places, you know? And when I eat it, I'm always like, it's a little spicy, don't get me wrong. It's got me like, you know, it's activating me in all the right ways and not letting me down tomorrow. This one, it activated me in the wrong ways and let me down tomorrow, which is now today. And I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, this was a very long Isaac run, but a very calm Isaac run as well. I apologize for spending approximately a quarter of the video bad-mouthing Charlie Kaufman's 2020 film, I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I admire it on the level of it being a genuine piece of art. I just did, however, find myself wishing I had the time back. But I think that for some people it'll be a thought-provoking and perhaps even exalted film. We have made it. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button. Helps out a great deal. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. For now, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. See ya!